So on behalf of the Institute on Municipal Finance and Governance at the University of Toronto, I welcome everyone to today's discussion. My name is Shonali Chakraborty, and I'm the Manager of Programs and Research at IMFG. I'm joined by Dr. Shauna Brail, Associate Professor and Director of the Institute for Management and Innovation at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, as well as Dr. Zachary Spicer, Associate Professor in the School of Public Policy and Administration at York University, and Dr. Austin Zwick, Assistant Teaching Professor at the College of Professional Studies at Syracuse University. We will be discussing Austin and Zach's recently released IMFG paper, Leveling Up Innovation in Local Government, an Evaluation of International Smart City Competitions. IMFG recently hosted a roundtable discussion on this paper, which Shauna moderated. Today, Shauna, Zach, and Austin will recap some of that discussion from the roundtable, and we'll discuss what Zach and Austin have found studying smart city competitions from around the world. Over to you, Shauna.
Great, thank you very much. Zach and Austin, I'm excited to discuss your IMFG paper, Leveling Up Innovation in Local Government, and to hear your reflections from the recent roundtable discussions that were hosted by IMFG.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. That's great. I'm going to start with a couple of questions. The first one is that your paper looks at several smart city competitions from around the world, and it examines how these competitions influence municipal and urban innovation, technological adoption, and economic development. I'm wondering if you could start by telling us what exactly are smart city competitions?
Great question and a good place to start. So smart city competitions, especially in the frame that we are looking at them, are initiatives by national governments to spur local governments to become smart cities or to explore smart city plans and design. So there's generally some funding involved. Say that if you were to put forward the most innovative plan, the most interesting plan, judged by a jury, usually, we are willing to give you X amount of millions of dollars to actually implement that plan. So national governments are asking municipal governments to put their best foot forward when it comes to smart city designs and plans.
It's worth noting that all of these competitions are different. What ties them all together is that they are all this competitive structure, this competitive framework. And they all have to do with using technology in order to spur innovation. But that's really where the similarities end. They're different in what the focus areas were, how many different cities got to compete, and every part of the structure from there on out. So what we see is all the different competitions we looked at use a different structure in order to help cities become smart.
Amazing. It's really quite a novel approach that has a number of different sort of avenues. Can you tell us which competitions you examined and how do they compare to one another?
We looked at 4 different competitions that are happening throughout the world. The first competition, Smart Cities competition that happened was the UK Future Demonstrator Program that happened in around 2012. From there, the next one that occurred was the United States Department of Transportation Smart City Challenge. And then there was a competition in the EU, and then finally one in Canada, also called the Smart Cities Challenge. And so all 4 of these competitions were focused on different areas. The first one was focused on looking at smart city plans more holistically as a kind of a trial balloon. It's the first one that occurred. The second one that occurred in the US that focused specifically on transportation. And finally, the EU focused on pairing large cities with smaller cities in order to do training programs in order to help their innovation teams and their digital modernization teams become more adept and skilled. And finally, in Canada, they asked cities across the country in order to find a program, define a problem, and how to address that problem, and had a much higher focus on incorporating the feedback and community engagement elements of a competition than the other competitions did.
One of the things I found really interesting in the paper and also at the roundtable discussion was the emphasis on how these types of competitions, these smart city competitions, enable governments to pilot urban innovations and also to gain experience as policy entrepreneurs, which is a kind of overflow expertise that comes from running the competition. So I'm wondering, what would you recommend that such competitions focus on in the future that can help further leverage and grow their impact in these ways?
That's a fantastic question. And we've seen a number of countries use the competition model in a variety of ways. So I'd say that the competitions are here to stay. I don't know if they will necessarily replace traditional funding mechanisms to get money to municipal governments. I don't know if we'll see a competition for social housing or anything like that, but they are certainly a useful tool for overcoming some of the traditional political ways to get money out the door. From the competitions we saw, they had a lot of successes, but there's always a couple of drawbacks, and I think that there are some ways in which they could be improved. So I would say focusing on some of those, and so in a way, kind of connecting some of the non-winners. Hesitate to call them losers per se, because these are communities putting the best foot forward and trying to improve themselves. But for those who weren't successful in getting funding, there should be some way to connect them. I think that these are all communities that have put their hands up and said we would like to be innovative and smart and to use technology in really interesting ways. Surely there is some way to connect some of these folks and better support them, and that could even be something as simple as a conference or networking events, something along those lines to connect them. Second is that I think that they could all use some support leveraging private capital. This has always been a part of these types of competitions that they were supposed to attract private capital, whether it's in kind or monetary, and navigating that has been challenging. I think there could be some support from government on that. And then finally, I think that all of these governments require some support on the data governance side. They need some support on privacy, IP, data governance, data collection, security. So far, a lot of them don't have their own individualized standards. Having national standards which they can meet and apply would certainly be helpful.
Certainly sounds like an area that's ripe for a lot of other work and research. I'm wondering, what are your key takeaways or next steps based on this research? And did the roundtable discussion last week have you thinking about what you might explore next, where you might take this work next?
So when we looked at these smart city competitions, we compared them on a urban evaluation framework, looking at whether there was learning that was occurring, systematic change, and organizational change. And what we found in a lot of these, both the city level, the organizational level, and finally at the individual level. And what we found that these competitions led to was a lot of learning took place. A lot of cities were seeing and thinking about the smart city concept for the first time and able to put their ideas and plans onto paper. And from that, cities that even didn't win the competition, they took a lot of these ideas that they learned, and in the case of the EU, the training that they got, and started to implement them for different initiatives and different plans in order to move forward. From there, we saw that some countries like the UK started to build off the challenge by creating a whole new funding agency like Innovate UK in order to have more competitions in the future. So our paper offers a whole lot of suggestions on how to run better competitions for a funding model, but also how do we move beyond this idea of just learning from a competition that in order to move to a more systematic or organizational change perspective. And a lot of those come down to what Zach was mentioning just a minute ago.
One thing that I'm curious about as well is that a lot of these competitions occurred in or around the COVID-19 pandemic, which frustrated some of the planning on the part of those who were not selected as finalists and winners. So I am curious about the effect of some of these competitions in an environment that wasn't disrupted by COVID. I think we are going to see more of these types of competitions happening. And I know that Austin and I will definitely be curious about what direction they may take in the future, including here in Canada if we see a second smart city challenge as was promised. So stay tuned.
That's great. Thank you. Some more to look forward to, and looking forward to more of your work on this.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Shauna.
Thank you, Shauna, for leading such an interesting discussion. And thank you to Zach and Austin for sharing your insights on smart city competitions with our viewers. Austin and Zach's paper is available at the IMFG website, which is imfg.org. And the paper is Leveling Up Innovation in Local Government and Evaluation of International Smart City Competitions. We look forward to sharing more videos on future IMFG papers with all of you. Please subscribe to our mailing list if you want to be notified about IMFG events and publications. Contact us at info.imfg@utoronto.ca. Thanks, everyone.